Hello, it is not long now before we know the shortlist for this year's Women's Prize for Fiction. That's going to be announced next week on April 2nd. So I'm here to give my predictions for what I hope will be shortlisted and discuss my experience of reading from the long list so far. Now, I was supposed to make this video with my friend Anna James, but she got caught up in work and life things, which of course come first. But we're planning on reuniting again to make a video before the announcement of the winner in June. Now, from the long list of 16 novels, I have read 11 so far because there are so many books on the long list, and these are the 5 that I haven't read yet. So, of course, my predictions will partly be just based on what I have read so far, but I am planning on reading The Dream Hotel very soon because this is what I'm going to be discussing with my online book club in April, whether it's shortlisted or not. So if you want to join us in reading and discussing this book, I'll put a link to my book club below if you're not a member already. Now, of the 11 books that I have read so far, and my feelings about the long list in general is, I'd say it's a good list, not necessarily a great list, because a lot of the books that I've read from the long list I would probably classify as good to very good, rather than excellent in all the books. And I was thinking recently about what lists from past years of the prize are the best and the strongest, and this was being discussed on a recent edition of the Plot-along with Charlie and Jem, and the question was brought up, was what was the best year of the Women's Prize for Fiction? And so I started thinking about this, of course, because it's a very bookish geeky thing to think about, and I was looking through past years of the list, and I would say 2018 was a really strong year for the prize, even though the winner, Home Fire by Camilla Shamsi, wasn't my favorite book on the short list, but books like The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock and Sight by Jessie Greengrass, and When I Hit You by Mina Kandasamy, and Sanam Buried Sin by Jasmine Ward, they were all really excellent, but also I think 2023 was a really great year for the prize, with Demon Copperhead, of course, winning, but also Fire Rush and Trespasses and Black Butterflies and The Marriage Portrait. The other book on that short list wasn't I didn't actually even read, but or finish reading, but yeah, I thought in general that was a really strong year for the prize. So it's a fun question I'd like to put for you if you've been reading books from this prize lists for many years. What do you think is some of the strongest years of the book prize? Now, looking through everything that I have read and that I want to predict, I mean, it will predict or hope that The Dream Hotel is shortlisted for the prize, just because I'm going to be reading this very soon. It'll make it a bit more extra exciting to read it within the context of the prize, though still really looking forward to reading it because Lalami is such a well-respected author, and I've never read anything by her before, so I'm really looking forward to this, and I've heard really positive things about this, so I do hope that this is shortlisted. But from what I have actually read, I am also going to predict Somewhere Else is on the shortlist, because I just finished reading this very recently, and overall I thought that the novel was really powerful, although it's one of those books that I almost had to slightly adjust my expectations of what I normally like from a novel in order to completely appreciate and enjoy it, because it is a family saga. I mean, it's primarily following one character, Rosa, from early on in her life and early on in the 1900s to much more recent times and close to her 100th birthday. So it does span her full life, but it does get into a lot of details about other characters of some neighbors of hers, and then descending family members that descend from her line and from people in the neighborhood, and following them over a long period of time. So of course, because it does span a century, that it just kind of dips into different characters' experiences, and there are certain characters which don't feel like we don't get their full story because it is ambitiously covering such a long period of time. But I think it is so fascinating and moving how it describes how much has changed in our society over time, and certain kind of progress and developments that have occurred over a period of time, but also how there are certain things which we keep coming around to and circling back to, and mistakes that we keep repeatedly making. And so it feels like the message of this story is quite urgent, and there were certain characters I came to feel really emotionally attached to, and there were some other characters I just felt like I didn't quite get a grasp fully on their characters. So there were positive and negative aspects of this book, and it's really fascinating how it gets into it covers the years in the creation of the Israeli state, and looking into issues of conflicts that were there from the beginning, and how certain decisions were made to when there were options that of things that could have taken place, which could have avoided. I mean, there's always going to be conflicts there when there are different religions and different cultures, and battles over a small area of land. But there were certain measures that could have been taken to avoid such intense and deathly conflict over time that weren't really taken, and so I found that really fascinating, but also following the trajectory of the central character's life over the course of a long period of time, and how she witnesses all of these changes that occur around her, stemming off from a very dramatic thing that occurs at the very beginning of the book. I found to be really moving overall. So yeah, I hope that this is shortlisted. And then probably my favorite discovery from the long list so far is Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell, and how this follows a little over a year in the life of a woman who leaves her marriage and a really controlling and terrifying relationship to remove herself and her children from that situation, and the real struggle she has in gaining independence and remaining out of that relationship. I found to be so moving and powerful, and of course it's been very well regarded novel already before it was even listed, but yeah, this is a book that I hadn't happened to have read before this prize list, and so I'm so glad that I got to reading this sooner rather than later. And another book that I would say I'd hope is shortlisted is Elizabeth Strout's Tell Me Everything, because I know it's slightly controversial to have on a prize list a book that's a sequel, or a book that's in a long series of books of characters that have been developed over multiple novels, but how it follows the way in which these characters come to converse over a lot of big life issues and things that we're facing at the moment, but also how it traces their evolving relationships. I just found to be so moving and powerful, although I'd be really interested to hear from readers who haven't read Elizabeth Strout before and then have read this book on their own, like how they found that experience and understanding of these characters, because she is very careful to explain their backgrounds and their relationships to each other. But of course, if you've read the other novels, you'll be much more knowledgeable about that. And of course, I am a big Elizabeth Strout fan, so I would be really glad to see this book shortlisted as well. And also the Safekeep, I'd be really happy to see shortlisted, because this is a really powerful novel, and this is another book that I read with my online book club, and we had so many great discussions around it, because there's a lot to say about this book. And when I started reading this story, I felt like in the first part it was, at least for me personally, it felt like it was getting to be a bit circular, but then the story does swiftly move on to a second part where things change dramatically and certain things are revealed, and there's and yeah, following these characters and their very intense relationship in this household, and the reveal of all of the secrets in their backgrounds, and how this relates to the aftermath and reverberations of World War II, I think is really powerful. And so this, of course, has got a lot of prize attention. But yeah, I think it deserves to get even more. And then one of my favorite books from the long list that I'd read before the prize list was even announced is A Little Trickerie. And this book is just so emotionally involving and such a great pleasurable story to read, even though there are some really heartrending things that occur in the story and a lot of tragedy. But I think because of the voice of the central character, and she's such a lively personality, set in this period in medieval times, and to bring a character from this period to life, to look at the culture of the time, and the limitations and struggles that she goes through as a vagabond, and then the plan she comes up to with a group of friends, and that to get out of their circumstances is just such a lively and fun story, and one that I found increasingly gripping towards the end of the book. I was so gripped, wondering what was going to happen and what was going to be the result, because they get themselves in a very tense situation. And so as a story that's both gripping and a pleasure to read, but is also such an interesting different take on history, I just loved reading it. So those are the 6 books that I hope will be shortlisted. Here they all are. But I would love to know what you think in the comments below of these books or any of the other books on the long list. What are you hoping will be shortlisted? Do you agree with me or disagree with me? Are there other books you would switch and change? And what do you think are some of the strongest years in the history of this book prize? I would love to know your thoughts on all of that. But we will see on April 2nd what the actual shortlist is. But I hope you have a good rest of your week and weekend, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.